So welcome to another edition of From the Studio, a podcast about stories from the world of product design and indeed innovation. We're delighted today to have a fantastic guest with us. But before we start, I'm Nick Bramley, the podcast host. I'm going to be joined in the studio by Beth Sanderson, who's one of my colleagues from PDM International. But primarily, this podcast is about our fantastic guest. We've got a lady called Angela MacOscar. She's head of innovation at Northumbrian Water Group. And Angela's absolutely fantastic at all things innovation. We're going to discover what that means in an organisation the size and scale of Northumbrian Water Group. So without further ado, welcome to From the Studio podcast, Angela and Beth.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Great to have you both. So first of all, Angela, thank you for agreeing to be on. You're a very busy lady. You're very out there in terms of speaking engagements and events and representing innovation in all things sort of the water industry. So getting you tied down to a date and time for a podcast, we're very pleased to have you. So thank you again for doing that. So let's start with what we're going to explore. We're going to explore what we call the innovation push and the innovation pull, and looking into how organizations of various sizes kind of create and implement innovation. Delving into the organization and how they go about it, what works best, and how to create an environment for innovation itself. So Beth's the product designer and quality management systems lead at PDM. As I say, Angela is head of innovation. So let's crack into the question, shall we? Are we okay to go?
We certainly are.
Excellent. Angela, I'll start with you. It's probably best before we start getting into the details to explain to our listeners a little bit about your career path and how you got to be head of innovation at Northumbrian Water. I think you've been there about 3-4 years.
Yeah, it'd be 4.5 years now, which have absolutely flown along. And it was never my intention to go into the water sector like many people's careers. They meander in ways that you never foresaw at the start of the journey, which indeed is a wonderful thing. So I started life out at 16. Knew it all, didn't want to stay at school, no need for any more education. But luckily for me, I took an apprenticeship at Shell, working in their lubricants laboratory, and they saw great potential in me and persuaded me that actually going to college was still a fantastic thing to do. So indeed I did. They also encouraged me to go to university, which again was never part of my plan. So I ended up going to Manchester University to study chemistry. Absolutely loved it. I then stayed at Manchester to do a PhD, which was sponsored by Volvo. So again, keeping in with my automotive theme there. So nice career shaping up in the automotive sector. But then I sold my soul and gave my hand to the highest bidder, which at that particular time was Procter & Gamble. So I went to work for the fast-moving goods industry, which was, again, just an absolutely fantastic opportunity. So I did 17 years with Procter & Gamble, and that's where I gained my passion and indeed my stripes relating to all things innovation. And Procter & Gamble, as many of you know, they make household goods, Fairy, Ariel, Pampers, you name it. They've got their hand in it and are very, very good at this and do this on a massive global scale. So I worked in their laundry department. I actually started my career in Brussels at their headquarters there for R&D, and absolutely loved the interaction between products and customers. So I kind of had a really nice role, which was technical. So I was actually creating the products, but then also understanding how people use them and how we could make them better. And it was through the amazing work that P&G do in the open innovation space that really piqued my interest in innovation. And I guess my big claim to fame, if I have one, is that I am the mother of bold lavender and chamomile. So I worked on the Bold brand when it was a value brand, and the advert was around why would you buy a detergent and a fabric softener when you can get them all in one box? So that was me, and but I took it then into a much more sensorial brand. So actually really shifted a commodity product into a more sort of like luxury sphere, which again was a very lucrative move for Procter & Gamble.
I know you're going to get to Northumbrian Water in a minute. I'm just fascinated by two things so far, really. One is that somebody who had no intention of continuing education, went through the whole process and eventually got a PhD, which is, that's really going against kind of your initial, I guess, instincts. And that's great to see, well supported and sponsored by your kind of employers, as it were, or certainly the sector. And then the second thing is you're absolutely responsible for people sniffing their sheets and thinking, this is a fabulous product that we've got on our sheets, and all the adverts that now are, like you say, you've shifted it from a sort of an entry-level washing product to a sensory product that people now, it's massive, isn't it, in terms of the brand, in terms of the UK particularly, and I'm assuming globally as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So
sorry to sort of walked over that. So what happened next then? I'm fascinated by where this has got to, and how, because it does meander. Careers very rarely follow a path, do they?
No, absolutely. And as I said, I had a fantastic global job at Procter and Gamble. So then I really then wanted to flex my muscles, and actually had the lead for further innovations in this sensorial space for laundry globally, which was a great job. But like all things, I kind of knew that it was a pivot point where, was I going to do this forever? Probably not. So then I made the very brave decision that I was going to flee big corporate and then actually set up something myself that I could control. I had 3 children under the age of 5, and a husband that worked away. So it was a little bit of a heady mix. So I wanted something that I had a little bit more control over. So I actually set up a lifestyle business, which was something totally different. Loved doing that. Did that maybe for about 5 years, but I really missed the science. So then I had an opportunity to work for a startup organization in the Northeast, Innovation Super Network. And I think I was the 4th person in. And again, absolutely loved working in a really small, agile environment. And my role with that business was to actually help small businesses innovate, because they don't have the luxury of having like a head of innovation within their businesses.
Yeah.
And every day was different, and I got to work with the most inspiring businesses across the northeast of England who did so many different and meaningful things, but just needed a little bit of help to get access to funding, make connections across all the businesses. And I found it really rewarding, absolutely loved it, and then got to know a huge amount of great people in the northeast. And it was through that relationship that then I came across Northumbrian Water. So the Innovation Festival, which again is one of the best bits of my job, which I'm hoping that we're going to talk about. I was actually shipped in to facilitate a couple of sprints for Northumbrian Water, and I guess then that relationship, and also then my interest in water grew, because water is one of those sectors that is largely invisible to people. I don't know about you guys, but you probably don't think about it very much. You don't turn on your tap and think, wow, we've got gorgeous drinking water that's clean and wonderful. Or again, when you flush the other stuff and think, somebody actually deals with that. And so again, it's only when things go wrong do we probably come top of mind to people. But moving forward, it is like the whole water sector is we are green jobs. We do a lot for the environment. Looking to the future, we need to make sure that we can deliver our products in a reliable and resilient manner. We're at the front of climate change, because whenever we have the strange weather periods that we're having now, with more frequency, whether it be the bad storms, prolonged droughts, the freeze thaw stuff, we're on the end of all of that because our assets are at the mercy of this. So it's an absolutely brilliant role. So I'm really glad that I kind of at any point didn't really know where I was going to go next, and who knows where I go again. I kind of keep a very open mind about the serendipity of where a career goes.
Well, I would say that in terms of, you clearly bring energy and passion to whichever role that you get involved in, Angela, because that's clear from the early throes of this podcast that passion and energy for innovation itself is kind of part of your DNA, and that's great to see. But could you, for those who don't know, just give us a bit of an insight into Northumbrian Water, the sort of size of it? It's obviously a regional water provider. How many people work there? How big is it? What's the sort of scale of the business compared to where you've just recently been in the sort of startup environment?
Yeah, so Northumbrian Water has around 3,000 employees. About a third of those are actually field-based. So they could be like digging the roads to fix pipes. It could be meter reading. We could have people in call centers. So we have a makeup of people like a kind of like satellite to the core business. We supply water to 4.5 million customers. And that is the northeast of England, kind of Scotland to kind of Yorkshire. And then we also supply water to Essex and Suffolk. And in the north of England, we do the sewage services as well, but not in the south. So
Okay.
a little bit of a funny thing there. We have thousands of assets, ranging from really big water and sewage treatment plants right through to really tiny ones in the rural Northumberland and everything in between. We have around 60,000 kilometres of pipes, whether that be water or mains, and we supply, I think it's just over 1 billion litres of clean water a day.
Wow. And like you said, we sort of take it for granted, don't we? Which is, you know, given some of the struggles in the world's population, it's remiss of us to do so. But you just take for granted that you turn your tap on or you flush your cistern, and you know, things either come out or get rid, don't they? So which is something we don't think about. But so I'm trying to get my head around innovation in a fairly sort of, what people would look at it from the outside and say it's a fairly standard utilities kind of environment. So explain a bit more about sort of the innovation push and pull, and why innovation is important within Northumbrian Water, and then we'll sort of work out kind of what your role involves in that kind of field, if that makes sense.
So innovation is critically important in the water sector right now, and it was a brilliant time to come in. And this is for a number of reasons. So firstly, I mentioned climate change. Climate change is massively impacting our sector, and we need to be on the front foot to make sure that we are reliable and resilient, so nobody ever really has to think about us. So there is still water and our services provided. Secondly, we have, as I said, thousands and thousands of infrastructure, and that can be everything from big concrete plants to like reed beds. All of this needs maintaining, and a lot of it is really old. Some of our pipes are probably Victorian, and not many of them are really lovely, new, shiny plants. And we've got to make sure that we can keep on top of these and make sure that they're fit for the future. We have increasing demand. I don't know what it's like where you live, but you'll see housing estates popping up everywhere.
Yeah.
Our infrastructure did not plan for those to be there, but we've got to then supply water and deal with the sewage that comes from those sites. So we've got an increasing demand, a diminishing resource. There is not a lot of water. I know we seem to think that we're this green island that has lots of water, but London has actually been cited as one of those cities that is facing water scarcity by 2050. So we all have a responsibility to use water in a responsible way. We also use potable water to flush toilets, wash cars, water gardens, which is just madness. So we have a lot of opportunity to change what we're doing. We also have an increased expectation. So the customers that we have, I'm sure you could be one of our customers. You know, when you're ordering a pizza, a taxi, you know, you flip up an app, you know, you know where it is. You don't have to take a whole day off now because somebody needs to come and fix something. And the expectation is the same for us. You know, our customers are wanting more and more from us. And we are a regulated monopoly business because you guys don't have a choice as to who provides it. So we need to make sure that we really, you know, push ourselves and keep the bills as low as we can. It should be something that everybody has. Nobody should not have access to these products and services. And we want to make sure that it's going to be there and reliable well into the future. So if there isn't a need for innovation for something that's that important, I don't know what is.
Well, I'd say that from what you say, innovation could be anything from, you know, upgrades and renovations of sort of, like you say, assets, right through to product development, app development, design, customer engagement. Innovation's not always associated with product. It's innovation in systems, processes, communication, all sorts of aspects of that. So like you said, it's probably a brilliant time to be involved, particularly given the driver that is indeed climate change and scarcity. That's a scary stat, by the way, for London 2050, isn't it? I'm glad I live in York, and I'm definitely one of your customers, so which is good to know. So Beth, let's talk about innovation from a PDM point of view. Obviously, PDM International, product design, manufacture for manufacture, innovation, medical devices, industrial, all sorts of things that PDM get involved in. How do you go about the process of innovation within PDM? Particularly, I'm thinking for your clients, they expect you to come up with things, don't they, that they've not thought of, which is why, in some respects, you exist. How does innovation fit in with PDM, Beth?
Well, exactly that. So for us, it's probably more about the person innovating themselves. So they've got to have an inquisitive mind. You know, we've got to be able to carry out divergent thinking. So really what I mean is, you know, thinking outside the box, which we can all do, but, you know, some are better than others. And that's what we are trained to do. So starting off the process of innovation with this mindset of thinking outside the box, you know, we can expand both our ideas, but also propose these new concepts to the client, as you said, they might have not previously considered. The person innovating, i.e. ourselves, we've really got to be a thinker rather than a doer. So we like to, you know, challenge the brief and challenge their initial ideas with the aim of actually producing an innovation that is what the user actually needs rather than what the client or we think they need.
And actually, Beth, maybe what they haven't given thought to, you know, a lot of people come to you with a potentially fixed idea, don't they, in terms of saying, this is what we want you to design. And what I really like about how PDM work is, well, let's decide if that is exactly what you want us to design, because the reality is it might be very different to that. And that's where that critical thinking that you mentioned earlier comes in, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, there's been many occasions where the client comes in and they've got their brief set in the head, they're 100%, this is what needs done. And we just delve into that a bit deeper and we question them back about, well, why is this what you're doing? Have you given this to a user? Have you spoke to the users? And a lot of them will come back and say, well, no, not yet. I'm like, well, okay, we need to maybe rethink this and take this back to the start.
And their innovation is tested against someone who likes them, to say, do you think this is a good idea? And they go, yeah, great idea. And that's their product testing done in that basis. So I know you've had lots of work around things like focus groups and user-centered sort of experience and you know, using the likes of VR and 3D printing to get a physical product out there for people to go, well, it's not what I thought it was, it's the wrong shape, it's too big, all the things that go with that. What you said earlier, thanks for that, Beth. What you said earlier links to the next question I've got for Angela, really, because on your LinkedIn profile, Angela, front and center, as I would say, you use the phrase bridging the what's needed with the what's possible. And I guess that's what you were alluding to there, Beth. But I really love the sound of that, you know, what's needed with what's possible. Do you want to expand a little further on that? Because it's right in the middle of your LinkedIn profile, front and center. It's clearly something that you passionately believe in, Angela. What's it all about?
Yeah, so I think that this links really, really nicely with what Beth was saying, is that oftentimes we really need to make sure that people understand what the problem is before you can really find a solution. So it's not about a lot of times it could be that people try and sell us like whizzy new gadgets or like, you know, shiny new tech. And actually, it's not about that. It's actually, right, what is the problem, and really unpacking so we really understand what is needed. So then we can clearly articulate that out to our supply chain, to academia, to others that might have the solution to that particular issue. So then we can bring in the right solution. And I think that that's really important. And that bridge between, I guess, is the communication piece and really making sure that you know what you want. So then when somebody has it, then it's going to fit together nicely. Because I've seen it, you know, reverse engineered. You've got the solution, but then you're trying to find the problem. Or indeed, you think you know what the problem is, but we didn't think about that bit, and actually now it's not the right solution because the problem wasn't the right bit. So really important, you know, that front bit, the what's needed is bang on.
That must be very common for you, Beth. You see that all the time, don't you, with people who've solved a problem that doesn't exist, or trying to sort of reverse engineer. I think the phrase Angela used there, in I've got this idea in this product, let's find something that we can use it for. And that's completely the wrong way of going about innovation, isn't it? And you must see it on a regular basis, Beth, do you?
Yes, yeah, all the time. I say, and we usually like to say, you know, sometimes projects we kill early because there just either isn't the need for it, or it's just, it's not going to work out. So we would rather say, better to fail fast and fail cheap in that way. Yeah, much more common than we'd expect.
It's quite hard to tell someone whose dream it is that this product is the best thing since sliced bread that it might not be, but yeah. I guess
it is, as we say, like killing their baby.
Those
I hate to think of, but it's for the best of the project, really.
Yeah, those are difficult conversations, but I guess, Angela, going into the workings of innovation in an organisation the size of Northumbrian Water, then, how does an organisation of that scale actually adopt and implement innovation? So if you've identified an innovation requirement, how do you go about it? What sort of journey would that entail, really?
So once we've identified a problem, we have a very, very small innovation team at Northumbrian Water, the 7 of us, that isn't anywhere near size enough to do all of the work that needs to be done. So what we've done is we've created a group called the Innovation Ambassadors. And this is about 90 plus individuals that sit in all different directorates, all different levels, different job types across the business who have an interest in innovation. And what we'll do is we will work with them to identify who are the right people to work on this, because there was no point somebody just working on it alone, because then when you want people to adopt it as business as usual, they'll generally not be that keen because it's not been invented here. You'll go through a whole learning curve with them. Whereas if you get people in early and get people interested and you can get them to see what the actual benefits of doing it are, then the chances of success are a lot higher. The other thing that we do is we bring in an executive sponsor. So again, there's no point us working on something that we think looks quite good if it is not part of what the business plan and what the broader plan is for the business. So getting that executive lead in is also really a fundamentally important part in order to join up the whole process and make sure that you've got traction. But link into what Beth had said, I think that it's really important that we have a stage-gated process, because often nothing goes straight forward. It's really hard. Innovation is hard, and it's not for the faint-hearted, because there are hurdles and things trying to trip you up the whole journey. So what we do then is we'll put in a support from innovation that can hopefully navigate some of those bumps and hurdles that come in the way in order to get you there. And we provide funding. So often perhaps like that individual might not have funding to do a proof of concept. And that's the sort of thing that we can do.
That's really interesting, because, I mean, we can usually see a hurdle, can't we? What we can't see is the pothole behind it that's going to, there's something that the unexpected. The hurdles are a part of the journey. I think, Beth would know from a PDM point of view, you'll know from your innovation background, Angela, that there's expected, jumps to get over and the next stage, but it's the unexpected, isn't it? It's the potholes, it's the things that come sweeping out from the left that you didn't see, that you're thinking that's fundamentally change your kind of requirements of that particular innovation or product or whatever it might be. But so I guess the next thing is, we talk about the how and how it works. What about the measurement? One thing I guess some of our listeners might be thinking is, innovation, is it tangible? Can you measure it? And if so, kind of how do you measure success? And have you got any examples of where you've seen an innovation be implemented and you can look back and say that's delivered X? How does it work, Angela? Sorry. Yeah. Quite a long question, that.
It is really important that you measure. I'm obviously a scientist, so if you don't measure something, you don't know how you're doing. So right from the off, we identified a number of performance attributes that we should be measuring as a routine. So it could be the softer stuff like the number of innovation ambassadors, the number of ideas. But then we've actually then got a stage-gated process where we can actually measure the flow of the projects across the different stage gates. We'll also have a measure of value, which actually is harder than it should be, because we are a regulated business, and the way that we the way that we are measured, if you like, is by penalty and reward that is set by our regulator. So it's not like at Procter & Gamble where like I could do a value, because I know if I sell 10 million of those packs at this price, then it's going to like my profit, and it costs this, then that's my profit. Well, it's very different. So it's more about how much penalty or how much reward that we'd actually get for different key indicators. So it is a little bit of a black art, but we're getting much better at it. And it is something that we're really working hard to develop, because it is actually all about the value that you bring. But the value could be financial, but it also could be reputational. It could be a more softer gain for your employees or for customer experience. So there are many different metrics that we measure, and indeed we do. We have a clear dashboard against all the things that we do.
Okay, because you're regulated, then obviously you are. Do the government expect innovation from you? Are the government pushing innovation in the utilities and the water industry in particular, or is it being driven by yourselves and the actual water companies?
No, our regulators, so Ofwat, have been incredibly proactive in this space, and for the last couple of years they have launched this £200 million innovation fund. And this has really been quite a game changer for the water sector, because there's 19 different water companies across the UK, and we all have very similar challenges and issues to solve, but we didn't really work together, which seems absolutely bonkers, but we just really didn't. However, that fund has driven a very different conversation and a lot more collaboration. And we now actually have a Centre for Excellence, which is called Spring, which is like the one voice of the water sector. But the innovation competition has also driven, obviously, competition, because it is a competition, for us all to compete for that money. So we're very, very much actively involved in that competition. And I think I think we've had 4 rounds now. I think Northumbrian, who is a middle-sized company, we've put in the most number of bids. I think we've put 30 bids in. We have won over £12.5 million, which is but a lot more than we've actually put into the fund. And we've got 8 winning projects that has really extended the innovation capability that we have as Northumbrian Water. So we love this competition. We also support other people's bids. So it means that we're not only getting funds in, but we're also getting the great learnings of all of the great projects that other water companies have had. Yeah. So absolutely true. I would say that we were doing it anyway, but I think that what the regulator are doing is actually really pushing it on. It's the same for energy. So Ofgem, they have an innovation fund, which again is stimulating innovation in the energy sector.
Good to see.
So it's a great place to be right now.
I'm intrigued as to why the water industry would call their centre of excellence Spring, but we'll move on from that. Clearly, someone's been on a marketing course to come up with that one. I like the simplicity of that one, Angela. Beth, question for you really is in terms of when you're getting involved in design and development and innovation at that stage, is measuring innovation something you can do as a studio, as a provider in that space?
It can be quite hard to find something that's like quantitative, so of course numerical to measure, because a lot of it is opinionated and it is based on the user. So for us, our main step is getting a proof of concept for the project, and so this is we can demonstrate to ourselves and our clients that what we're doing actually works in principle. But then once we've got that, we can then start looking at measuring more tangible outputs. So can the user actually use the product as intended? And for me and PDM, this is really one of the most valuable milestones of innovation, is getting that product in the user's hands. It's often quite a surprise to see that, to see how a user expects a product to be used compared to how we actually intend them to use it. And we expect this from most focus groups of new target audiences, but we've actually encountered quite a few of our own clients. Their teams weren't aware of how their own products should be used, which was a real eye-opener. But yeah, and so from user testing, of course, we can expect failure occasionally, and this kind of comes back to what I said before about, failure can sometimes be a good outcome, which we can measure, because of course that can tell us whether the project did get killed early. And again, it comes back to, do we fail fast and cheap? Is that our best option here? But yeah, it's difficult. It's not linear. It's, in a lot of occasions, quite hard to quantify, but we can go through the verification, validation process. So are we meeting our design inputs, but also are those design inputs correct?
I think the other thing that you look at from an innovation point of view is when the product is finished and out as a commercial asset, does it do something quicker, more efficiently, cheaper, less labor intensive? The innovation is in the user's hands, I guess, from the end product on that basis. Beth, would that be a fair assessment?
Yeah, definitely. I say in some cases we base innovations off predicate devices. So we can look at those and think, well, how's that been made? What's its impact on the economy? It's this like circular design. How much does it weigh? How much materials it used? Can we reduce that? Can we reduce its cost? Can it be quicker to make? And that's something we're getting more into, is that circular design, which is, say, we can start bringing in some more quantifiable measurements to give also back to the client to suggest to them what other options we have taking this innovation forward and improving both the product, but also, their business.
I mean, that could be innovation in materials, could be innovation in single-use plastics, it could be innovation in all sorts of things there. So there's a definite end game that you can look at and measure, and it's very much a start of a journey for that sort of circular economy discussion, isn't it? Lots of companies kind of want to do it, but they don't really understand the implications. I know PDM are taking a bit of a lead on that, which is good to see. So yeah, long may that continue. Angela, we mentioned about innovation and why it's important a little bit earlier. Can you share some of the recent successes, any of the things you're particularly proud of, without breaching any competition rules, giving the competition an insight into your next bid, for example? What are you particularly proud of that's been innovative over the last, in your tenure, really?
So we obviously run our Innovation Festival. It'll be year 7 this year. We're running it the 10th to the 14th of July. So you'd be more than welcome to come and experience the festival. Yeah. And in this, we actually, because we strongly believe in open innovation, because we know we don't have all of the answers. So we actually don't want to keep the IP of anything that pops out of the festival. We'd much rather our clients, our partners, make it real, because then we have the benefit of it. And that's just the model that we use at Northumbrian. But in the first year of the festival, in a number of the sprints, it was articulated the need for a national underground map. So when we're going out and fixing leaks and digging roads, that then we know where other utilities are, so it prevents strikes. People are killed, unfortunately, through roadway, and not in the water sector. It could be comms, could be electric. Anybody who's putting pipes under the road. So what we decided, that in the year after the festival, that it was too slow making any. We knew it was a good idea, we just couldn't get any traction. So what we identified was why it wasn't happening. And one of those big reasons was data sharing. So in the following year, we ran a year's worth of work in a week, as we coined it. 60 people in a tent for 7 days equates to about a year's worth of work. Right. And one of those groups of people we had in there were the lawyers, and said, essentially, we're not letting you out of the tent until we've got a data sharing agreement. And lo and behold, they did one. And in that week, we already mapped Sunderland.
Right.
So we already had a proof of concept. We had, in principle, the data sharing agreement there, and the UK government actually saw what we had done, and then gave us a 400 million funding to map the Northeast and London, which again we did. Yeah. And now it has gone national. So in March of this year, there's actually a beta on the government website, and you can request for data in a specific space. It's all very, very carefully managed. It's almost a little bit like Snapchat, that you can only have a certain amount. You can't take screenshots. You use it for the amount of time you need it, and then it's gone. So it's a very, very safe way of us actually giving the data to the right people, but keeping still our national infrastructure very, very safe and sound, which is, of course, key.
Well, I would say, as a road user and a consumer, if it's anything to do with reducing the amount of repeat roadworks in the same parts of the world, that would be wonderful to see. That's an innovation we can all applaud, I think. And it seems madness that didn't exist in the first instance, though, doesn't it, really?
A little bit, but that's how. But I guess if people don't communicate to each other and don't collaborate, then these things don't ever happen. It's reckoned to be worth around 3.2 billion to UK PLC, and I know to a company like ours, it's worth probably around £1 million a year, just in lost time. And then, as you said, disruption to our customers, it will reduce. So the benefits are going to be absolutely massive. So that's a huge project that was delivered. But we obviously have smaller and other ones that also pop out of the festival. And one of those ones, which again is a very basic one, but again very important, was a leaky loo kit. So people's toilets drip, and you probably just ignore it and don't do anything about it, but it means that we're wasting like millions of litres of fresh water every year that can be easily fixed. So at Northumbrian, we'll come and fix your loo for free if you let us know that you've got a problem. And then we provide you with a kit that's basically a little piece of paper you put at the back, and if it gets wet, you give us a call. So again, not rocket science, but it means that, over the years that we've now had the leaky loo kits out there, we've saved, hundreds and thousands of litres of water and saved the customer money if they're on a meter. So again, innovation can take all sorts of different shapes and forms, and we embrace it all.
But that solved a problem that existed, you see, and that's the key. It doesn't matter about how high tech or whizzy the solution is. If it solves a problem that exists, then innovation is the answer, isn't it, really?
It is.
Tell us a little bit more about the festival, because you've mentioned the dates. I'd like you to repeat that again for us. We'll put that in the show notes as well. But you mentioned sprints. You mentioned locking lawyers in a tent for a week. I've got pockets of information then about what this festival's about. Going to see some locked-in lawyers. I'm not sure that's kind of. Give us a bit more. It's at Sunderland University, is that right? Is that
no? We held it at Gosforth, so Newcastle Racecourse in Gosforth. And the reason why we hold it there is because they have a tented village. So we sit between Ladies' Day and Plate Day. So it means that the infrastructure is already there. It's a wonderful open air environment that is taking people out of buildings, out of offices, out of living rooms to be in a communal space. We deliberately call it a festival. It's like a mashup of Glastonbury and design sprints, and it has all of the elements of each. And the reason why we do this is because when people are in their shorts and t-shirts with glitter on their face, listening to music, mixing with people that they wouldn't normally mix with, this is when sparks fly and good conversations happen. And the amount of collaboration and will that happens on that site is incredible. Usually have about 2,000 people. We run around 25 design sprints simultaneously in the tents.
Wow.
We also run a couple of data hacks, and we've created this accelerator sprint, which we call a year's worth of work in a week. And across that week, we already identify what topics we want to work on. And it could be things that are pertinent to us, but it could also be kind of crossover projects that are pertinent to other businesses. So we have other organizations that work with us, and this can be everything from Procter & Gamble, Microsoft, IBM, Newcastle University, you name it, everybody in between. And everybody is welcome. It is free to attend. We feed you splendidly. We give you entertainment. And all we ask then is that you bring your full self and get involved in the sprints, because everybody has different knowledge, different perspectives, different background stories that they then can bring something, no matter what the topic, to actually then change the course as to what happens to that output.
Excellent. What's the dates again?
The 10th to the 14th of July.
Okay. I'm just warning the lawyers in the Northeast to avoid Gosforth Park Racecourse, or they will be there for the entire process, but that's okay. I understand you've also just been recently or previously involved in the Sydney Water Innovation Festival. How did the UK compare to Australia then in terms of its approach to festival kind of innovation?
Well, it's brilliant that Sydney Water have been brave enough to adopt the Innovation Festival process. So we've worked really closely with them. So they ran year 2. It was in November of last year. And I did have the luxury of going and attending their event. They are quite different. There are many similarities. So again, the design sprints, some differences. They had much more of a kind of like tech showcase feel, more speakers. Ours is definitely a contact sport that you get fully involved during the week to actually then make and drive a change. But it's absolutely fantastic to be working with Sydney Water, because at the heart of it, everybody's challenges in this sector are the same.
Mm.
And some people are more advanced in other places than we are. So you can imagine water scarcity and water use in a dry place like Australia is pretty key.
Yeah.
So it's amazing for us to have this global connection, and this kind of came out in 2020, when obviously we had the global pandemic. So we'd run 3 festivals really successfully, planning year 4, and then, oh my God, maybe we can't run it. So we thought, oh, maybe we'll have a year off, but no such luck. We took the really brave decision to actually digitize all of the great things about the festival. And I can honestly say that when we opened our digital doors that day, we had no idea what was going to happen.
Right.
But what did happen absolutely blew us off our feet, in that we had people from 33 different countries join the online sprints and take part in the festival. So
Wow.
it really brought this new global dynamic and actually made the event more reachable for those people. I mean, even people across the UK maybe aren't brave enough to come up to Newcastle, or haven't got time, or, whatever, I can understand. So this way of doing it online has actually really opened up those doors. We really want to keep those doors open, because it really adds a lot. And I think that this is, as we've evolved, as I said, this is going to be year 7. I think one of the things that we see is actually that innovation needs to be inclusive. So you don't want to put up barriers in any way for people to be able to not add and build, or be able to contribute their ideas. So this kind of thread of inclusiveness is something that we work on every year to try and see how we can improve.
So are we now talking about a hybrid kind of event? So there's the global reach of a digital part of the event with the in-room. I like the fact you called it like a spectator sport rather than an inclusive sport rather than a spectator sport. You don't come to watch, you come to sort of
absolutely
into it. You described to me before the podcast as something of a rock star of water. Now, I mean, you seem quite a modest person. How do you feel? That's a great thing to be called, isn't it? How do you feel?
It is for somebody who can't sing.
Well, but how do you feel about being a rock star of water then, Angela? What would you say?
Well, I think whoever gave me that accolade, thank you very much. But I'm glad that you also picked up that actually I'm a pretty humble person. We still have loads to learn, right? So I'm always very happy to share what we know, but likewise, I love learning. We absolutely need to learn from what other people do out there, so that we can be at our best. And I guess that's the thing that I aspire the most, is that we keep improving and doing the best, for our customers and for the operations that we have, for our staff, to make sure that we're on this path, because nobody has it 100% right. And I think the very exciting thing for me is that everything always changes. So even if you're winning today, who knows what's going to happen tomorrow? So don't ever sit back and think that you've got there, because that travelator keeps moving.
I'm going to come to Beth just very briefly. Beth, you work in the industry from the other side of things, from a studio perspective. Is that attractive to you, that the fact that it's so varied and challenging, and you really never know what the work you do today is going to generate tomorrow? Really, is that part of the attraction of being in the sector?
Oh, definitely. I say even just it being product design itself, you cover all bases really. Yeah, even if it was to cover graphic design and everything through until the end product, the manufacturer, it's honestly a different day throughout the years I've been here. And yeah, it's the main thing I love about it. I mean, it keeps you on your toes all the time.
Well,
you don't know what's coming around the corner, whether it's good or bad.
Well, every time I'm in the studio, you're always smiling, so you clearly enjoy what you do, which is good to see. Or maybe it's just a grimace, and I don't know, but it looks like a smile to me when you're doing that. So I've got a final question, Andrew. It's about sort of, I guess, diversity more than anything. And I don't want to play the gender card, because it's not really about that. I think I don't want to get too political about kind of the diversity of age and genders and whatever within kind of your sector within innovation, but do you think there's work to do to encourage more people into a more diverse representation of the population into your kind of industry, and indeed into innovation in general?
Yeah, absolutely. I think diversity is a key part of innovation, because if you had everybody who was the same, you'd all have the same, there'd be nothing interesting at all. So absolutely, and at Northumbrian, I know we're working really hard to really dial up the diversity of our workforce, so it fully represents the customers that we serve. Within innovation, there's definitely a lot of scope to add many different aspects to the mix. I know when I first started going to events, the audience was not very varied, to say the least. So I was always very happy to be there, all colourful, representing perhaps something a little bit different for the sector.
Did they all look like me, old and grey and bald? Then,
perhaps. Experience is a wonderful thing, and something that that is really valuable and needs to be there. But I think in order for us to have the vibrancy of ideas and to really flex our innovation muscles, we need to create a more diverse audience with which to play with. So definitely something that we look for, and certainly something that we very much support.
Excellent. Well, if you continue to be the rock star representing the sector, then I'm sure that'll continue to bring people to that sector. And I love the idea of the global reach of the festival as well, because that can only help, from a diversity of backgrounds, not just, in terms of gender, or not just in terms of age, but just in terms of, backgrounds in general and sort of experiences. So that's a brilliant thing you continue to do. So, well done for that. And look, see what we can do for the festival this year, because it sounds like a bit of a mix between what did you call it? A mix between
so Glastonbury mixed with design sprints.
Yeah. Sounds like a compelling argument. But on that note, we're going to finish the podcast, and all that remains for me to say is thank you, both of you. Thanks, Beth, for your insights from a PDM perspective, and Angela, thank you very much for being a fantastic and interesting guest around the whole innovation at Northumbrian Water, and indeed sort of wider picture. This has been a From the Studio podcast. Our details for those who watch this on our from the studio portal on the PDM website. Our contact details are there. This is also going to be available on Spotify, which we're delighted about as a recent innovation from our viewpoint as well, bringing the message to a wider audience. All that remains for me to say is thank you again to both my co-host and our studio guest, and we hope you enjoyed this episode of From the Studio.